Are you an entrepreneur looking for a platform to sell your products? Do you have a passion to join a community that teaches you how to circulate the black pound? Why not start your business on Shops Noir, the online marketplace for African and Caribbean vendors? You will be given your own store to upload your products. Once you've given your store a name, then let Shops Noir do the rest to market your business. To set up your online store, register at www.shopsnoir.com or telephone 0844 884 9221. Shopsnoir.com.
Them I wonder how Bless Radio do this. I see them come with tongue. Future profit, tell them we love get longer. Eat them heart, it and it. Bless Radio, you don't know. Pop the good music. Play them.
You're in tune to DJ Jammers on Bless Radio, UK's #1 station for great music. Don't touch that dial.
Boom, boom, boom. I'd like to say big request to Ruggedy once again. You're in tune to the Jam Master Show, talk show, full of esteemed guests. And of course, as you heard, what the record is, the program is all about identity. Right, we had a little introduction on the subject last week where we talked about definitions of identity and as well also the etiology, which is the causes of different identity. We touched on it. Also, we brought in a level of consciousness. I just picked up today's Evening Standard, and I've just noticed that the Arsenal football team, the title is "The Gunners Face an Identity Crisis." So identity comes in all shapes and form. Apparently everybody's been playing out of position. They're not playing how they used to play. So when you don't have your identity or you're using another identity, you're out of position. And that's what happened with the Arsenal football team. You could fire blanks, which is not good for men. Anyway, to introduce our first esteemed guest who brought the subject home last week, Lyndon.
Greetings, massive out there. Thank you for tuning in to Bless Radio.
How you feeling, sir?
Yeah, I'm feeling because right now, the massive is all matter.
I've got a bone to pick with you because you've changed up the whole program. Because when you brought in this identity thing, I've had to scrap what I had to do for this week because it's like it's going to be another 2 weeks on this topic.
Identity is more ingrained than we think. It's not something just on the surface, and so it does need a few weeks to really, bring other levels of recognition to identity.
Right, and on this topic today, what are you going to bring to the table?
What I aim to do, Brother Jammers, is to review what we did last week in a short span, to restate Glasser's therapy, reality therapy, and also to reinforce the last 2 points we made in summing up last week, which was about failure identities and success identities, the involvement and responsibility of parents, the involvement and responsibility of schools.
Okay, and before you do that, we've got another esteemed guest in the house. I'd like to welcome Edison in the house. Edison,
Jammers, how you doing?
Finally linked up today. Yeah?
Finally, I thought I had to come in and see what was going on.
Good to have you in the house. So I know today is going to be a serious show. So once again, if you're driving, shut your windows, make sure you're tuned in, keep both hands on the steering wheel because you might hear something here that might, And also get your pens and paper in your house, get your loved ones in. If you get your paper, get your recorders on. This is the time to take some serious notes. So Edison,
yes,
thanks for coming down. And also we have co-hosting for today once again, brother Dougie. Dougie, is he here?
Yeah, I'm there, man. I'm there. Yeah.
Brother Dougie?
Yes. 1, 2. Check in. Yeah. Microphone, check in. Yes, first I want to give thanks and praise to the Most High. Give thanks for life. And give thanks for this beautiful, powerful station. Bless Radio. I don't want to say too much because we have some powerful man inside the host. Edison, when I thought Edison, I had to really bow down to him, you know. And when I saw Brother Lyndon, you know what I mean, it's just a joy to see these powerful men them. So I just want to keep myself out and just hear some reasoning and some powerful reasoning. Also, a big shout out to Note, because I know that Sister Marnie is locked in right now. Sister in Manchester, Latif is in Manchester, locked in right now. There's people all over the globe locked in right now. So, and last we had some people from Nigeria. Was it Nigeria? Some people,
Nigeria and New York as well.
And New York as well, you know what I mean? So
also,
global.
I just said that. Also, big up Shen, who's absent today, but here in consciousness, and also Art here in consciousness, and we might have an appearance by Theo as well. So, Lyndon, start off the grand proceedings. Lyndon.
All right, so see me, huh? Yeah, you have to take me as I am, you know, because right now...
You forget about me once again.
Critter
me also, yes.
Oh, Critter.
Yeah, and jump on me line away, you know. I tell you what, see that. Let's leave that go on in a hit star.
Yeah. Why, that sound good, you know? Yeah. So, let me just say this. I will deliberately not enter into consciousness as such, because it is an involved thing on its own. So I'll leave that for another program.
Yeah,
well, I will talk about awareness.
Anyway, so you do what you do. All right. Part, and then we'll Edison to touch on the consciousness.
Okay, that's cool. All right. So first of all, you know, all the massive out there, let me just reiterate and confirm this concept of reality. So, William Glasser says this in his reality therapy. He asserts that all humans, regardless of culture, have a single basic need. This is the need for an identity. The need to feel that we are somehow separate and distinct from every other living being on the face of the earth. That's really the principle that has set us off in motion up to a couple of weeks ago. So, once we've reestablished that, and you remember that, and you are contemplating that, I can go into a very brief thing about what we did last week. Remember the principal thing that came out are the two selves. Now, some people say we've got three selves. Let me just say this. Some people say we've got three selves. They agree with me that there's one self of how other people perceive us to be, and there's a second self of how we perceive ourselves to be.
Right.
And they're saying that there's a third self, and they call it the higher self.
Right.
But for I go into the philosophy of me, myself, and I. Yes? And the reason I say that is more than a reason. The justification for seeing it is more than justification. If somebody else perceives me to be who they think I am, then that's the me factor in that philosophy. Then, of course, the myself is self-explanatory. Right. Is whom I believe I am. And then there's I. So whom they're referring to as the higher self, I say to you, there is no self. There is only those two selves and the I within. Simple as that. So it's me, myself, and I. Always remember that, and you'll be able to find your identity, because you're looking for the I within.
I think Edison wants to interject. Edison?
No, I don't want to interject, just to coalesce, not even coalesce, to agree. I remember I wrote a long time ago on Facebook a post where I said, as soon as you say am, you're speaking about an external identity.
Right.
The actual original you and the only one you is the I, and then it creates the identity outside of itself. So it creates an idea by which it lives by. The problem that we're suffering with, more of us, is that we don't own our own image label. So we don't own the image in our minds of ourselves. It belongs to someone else who's basically created it, formed it, and sold it back to us. And we've now been educated to believe that we're black, we're this, we're that, when we're none of these things. The actual I doesn't have a color.
Hold on, Me had trouble deal with my man last time, and my girlfriend kicked me out because of him. So, Edison, you have to hold back because you're too deep for me. I'm bringing Linton, and Dougie can bring you in. Come in, Linton.
Well, you know, I have to confirm that Edison is absolutely spot on. Because the people who do not recognize the I within are the ones who are struggling with their identities. And this is what I hear Edison say. Now, can you confirm that, Edison?
100%. If you believe you're someone else's version of yourself, then you don't even own yourself, which means that you're trying to achieve an artificial destiny based on someone's perception of what you are. Essentially, someone is giving you a story and you're trying to live up to their story, but none of that is you. And half of the story is based on them being the superheroes and you being the zero of that story. So you're trying to aspire to be them. When they wrote their position into that situation, they didn't actually do anything to achieve it. If that makes sense.
Makes a whole heap of sense, my brother. And you know, it is so refreshing to have reconfirmation of all the things we did in the studio last week and the week before with all yourselves, brother Dougie Jammers and the rest that was here. One of the major things I want to say right here, it gives me an opportunity to say, is about owning and responsibility.
Yeah.
You see, as Ed quite rightly said, you know, whatever we're sold as a concept of somebody else's perception of whom we are meant to be or are, immediately we begin to own that. It's a terrible thing to own anything because then you become possessive and you don't want to let go of it. And this is why lots of people find themselves in a corner because they can't let go. What we are saying, principally as scientists, is simple. Be responsible for it. Don't own it. Yeah? So you go out to own the self because you want to have possession of self. But which self is it you're owning? You don't really know. So isn't that a dangerous thing to do? Because you don't know what the consequence is going to be. But the consequence is going to be that you're not going to know yourself. End of story.
You know the hardest thing? The only self you can own is the I.
Well, it's not a self.
Well, and truth is not. But then the truth is, all the other stories were written by someone else. Yeah. And the reason why you get into argument is you're trying to define someone else's perception of you. Yeah. Someone says you're this, you're that, you're this, you're that. And you're saying, no, I'm this, but a little different, that, but a little different, that, but a little different. But you're none of them. Someone has tricked you into an idea, and you're now trying to make the best of a bad lot, not knowing that that bad lot doesn't belong to you. Yeah? If you understand that you're the actual intelligence engaging in these things, that intelligence doesn't have to engage. It doesn't have to play. It doesn't have to be involved. It can live a separate reality altogether outside of this reality. The one thing that these people invented, and we can look for all history and see black faces at the beginning of it, they invented the illusion.
I love that.
Ouch. The illusion. All right. I just want to bring it to because people are listening right now and people might say, "Wait, what kind of reason I'll go on this or no?" Right? But people who, you know, or get to find themselves, right? I get to find them musical self, right? And they say, "Well, what kind of reason is this?" But how can someone grasp this concept? I'm going to ask you, because I know you've done a lot of research in a particular area. What books or information they can turn to just to get a grasp of themselves in terms of what you're saying?
Well, with the internet right now, you know, research is so much simpler.
Yeah.
You know, and anybody can just put in a word, you know, identity, and you get a whole thing coming up. Yeah. And I would strongly, as you suggest, ask people to go and do this.
Yeah.
You know, don't just take our word for it. Go out there, look it up. Yeah, I could give you reams and reams, but it doesn't really matter because you're going to have to remember that. I don't want you to remember it. I want you to go and explore it.
Because one of the challenges I find, from being on the radio and talking to people, that people don't really do their research. You know, people tend to rely on what other people say, and then they hear what Boomer Johnson says and blah 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 blah. Do that. Most people don't do their own research, and that's why we encourage people. Do your own research. You might not agree with what Edison said, but at least you've done your research. Say, well, all right, then, what you don't agree with, you see, than someone just spitting that information to you and so forth. So what the brother's saying, there's some information online. It's unbelievable. You know, check it out. Type in the word and see what comes up. You know, do your research, question it, question what we're saying. At least it's meaningful. You know, but I want to bring it round because I think Brother Lyndon did mention last week the whole thing about the young people involved in gun and knife crime and this and that, right? And the parents are a bit disillusioned what's happening, right? How does identity come to play now with what's happening now today?
Great
it's a bit
question.
Of a jump question, though. But
No, but it's such an apt and great question to be asked at this particular moment. Because just like I said about ownership of identity, if one is owning the stereotypical image of who we're supposed to be, then we're going to live it. Do you understand? They're not taking any responsibility for their behaviors. We can see that as a consequence of not knowing their identity.
Because you're absolutely right. They're not taking responsibility at all, and we can see that right through the borders. Then, but continue reading because you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and I just want to go into Glasser again because he has a section which talks about responsibility, and Glasser says, quote, responsibility is defined as the ability to fulfill one's needs and to do so in a way that does not deprive others of the ability to fulfill their needs. How simple is that?
May I?
Okay. Well, I know Edison, you're ready for jumping paddles here. Paddles here. I know you're ready for eat up them thing here. Come in, paddles though.
Honestly, it's never an argument. It's always in compliment. But the idea of responsibility started with our parents. Okay? And it sounds harsh, but not in that they didn't do something right. It's just that they weren't watching what was happening right in front of them. Yeah? All of them came over...
Sorry, give us an example.
All right, no, I was going to go into the story. That obviously, you know, we had a generation of people that came and they worked hard. 1, 2 jobs, did what they needed to do in order to get what they needed to get. You know, they believed in this mother country and they believed in the whole education system. And they put their children into the education system, and they weren't aware that while the parents were working, the system was working on their children.
Say that again.
Yeah.
Whilst the parents were working, the system was working on their children. They created a set of children that had a massive inferiority complex. You see, this is why I said if you don't own your own image identity and a different group of people own it, they will teach you that you're black. They will teach you that you're inferior. They will teach you that you're less. They will teach you that you have to do twice as much to get half as much. They will put all these ideas into your children, where your children are growing up with people that they're equal, they're doing the same in the class, yet their color makes them less equal. And these kids are coming through that system obviously angry. The parents that were busy working did the right thing according to the dream. Now look back at their kids saying, hold on, you've got all this education but you're acting so stupid. And the child is looking at, I was taught to be stupid. And the parent doesn't realize that the education was never meant to make him smart, was never meant to make him wise. Look, education is like someone having a computer program, which your mind is a perfectly fertile ground waiting for you to plant seeds. And what they did is upload all the information that they wanted these children to have, all the things they wanted them to fear, all the people they wanted them to respect, gave them all the titles of who the top people, gave them what their position was. These kids were lost in a fairy tale that they were always going to be at the bottom end of it. No matter what they did, how hard they worked, their color would come first, their education would come second. They go for any job now, the man's going to look at them and say, do you fit in, rather than what you know. And only unless you change yourself completely and take off that dark skin whilst you're at work are you going to fit in. Because if you don't do that, you're going to stand out. And everyone's going to see you as someone who's an eyesore. We want your intelligence, but we don't want your culture, your understanding, or who you are. So people have to give up who they are to go far in this society. So you have a scenario now where you have a group of children that are in a fairy tale that the parents didn't write, didn't negotiate a good position for them. And now these kids are having to fight against nothing in their future. They've got nothing to lose because they can't see nothing that they're going to gain in the future. So we're in a scenario where we're upset with them when we should have been upset with what we allowed to happen to them.
So would you say that? 'Cause I understand the argument about the other thing about education, right? But is it about really having our culture, having our value, having things in place? Because that's where it's missing. And the reason I'm saying, because if you look at other race of people, you know, they have their culture, have their values, they have their school and everything, and you know they're intact and they can have to be more. We don't have that. So.
Well, I see that's what the device they use with connotative language, and what I mean by that is the language that they use. It takes away the roots of where it comes from. So if we're using the language of somebody else, we lose our sense of who we are by just taking on that language. For instance, they say we had slavery, but slavery is not African. Slavery is from the Slovakia. It's another set of people. But they've given us this word, and we're now calling ourselves slaves, but we're not slaves, we're Africans. You see, so from the language, introduction of this language, it makes us lose the purpose of who we are. There's never a slave trade, it was an African trade. You see, so when you don't relate to who you are, then you use this language, and it makes you lose your identity. Lyndon?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. I think this is apt opportunity for me to go along with what we've been saying for the last couple of weeks and to be in phase with what Edson, yourself, Brother Dougie, and Brother Jammers has said. I mean, we are agreeing in every possible way and putting our own fine-tuned points on it. So let me define what Glasser says. You know, it says there are 4 link chain implicit in either failure or success identity. And I'll give you the failure first. He says denying reality, which is what Brother Jammers just talked about. Irresponsible behavior, which is what Brother Edison just said. Loneliness and pain. Lack of involvement. And that prescribes, that's the prescription for a failure identity. Okay? Now, let me just quickly move on. We have different sources which we have already looked at.
Could we just say the loneliness and pain? Can you imagine what the young boy or the young girl is going through where their parents can't identify what they're going through?
Exactly.
They're going through a load of situations where this system or the children, the school is telling them slavery, giving them all these situations where they want to inflict a previous pain and an identity on these kids. What they're trying is to say is, look, we think in pictures. So if I give you a negative picture to look at yourself, you're going to think negatively about yourself. So if all I can do is keep promoting that picture and not giving you any options, eventually you're going to collapse to the weight of the pressure that I'm putting on you. And if I say to you that in order to pass the exam, you've got to go along with the lie.
Well, my brother,
the poor child is there realizing he has to put lies down in an exam in order to get the job afterwards. So he has to beat himself up internally, deny who he is to go forward. So these guys have got it locked where essentially the poor child hasn't got a chance. And the loneliness they feel, especially when the parent can't relate to them, is what they're really going through. So that's the loneliness and what have you, because when a child is going through that situation and so many different forms of abuse, you know, there's all the different ones that have happened as a result of slavery and as a result of keeping people of color in a certain mindset where people have gone, abused them, taken what they wanted from them and then blamed them for their own position. and they've got no one to complain to because we're still trying to fight for power in a system that was never designed for us to have any. And even if tomorrow we actually accumulated all the wealth that we thought we need, would we now design a reality not based on what they've given us? Would we design a reality based on our culture and understanding? They made sure that that was lost, so we don't even know where that can be found again. But sorry, I'll let you carry on.
No problem, my brother. Listen, I can only roll on from here to read the research which is confirming every single word that's been uttered in the studio, to be frank. It says the school involvement in order to get our children to the failure identity stage. Although parental involvement is very important, it is vital that schools be involved in helping children towards success rather than failure identities, which encapsulate exactly what we're discussing here. Many children who go to school have already started having failure identities, while others will have to struggle to maintain their success identities while at school. Glasser feels that many children fail at school because teachers deny that the child's humanity and needs for love and worth are primary. Yes? Consequently, instead of developing a warm personal involvement with children and then helping them towards responsibility with a relevant curriculum which encourages them to think through issues, teachers focus on rewarding children for attaining goals which may have little relevance to them. And that's it.
That's 100%. As long as you can put yourself down and raise themselves up, you'll go far, my son.
Yeah.
But let me jump in because the question I did ask earlier on, though, Edison, and probably to Lyndon, and Jam did the jumping as well, talk about it, so about the language, is how do we hold on to our identity? I'm talking about more of our culture and our values, because other people have done that and they've been successful in terms of achieving their purpose and once you have purpose, you have direction. Where, like I said before, we just kind of integrate into the system.
Well,
yeah. So the question would be, how do we hold on to ourselves?
All right.
Who do you want to address that? Ed or myself?
Both can do it. But let this go for then you go after. Yeah.
Okay. The funny thing is, you see where we lack a spiritual identity. Yeah, we're spiritual slaves.
So what do you mean by spiritual identity?
When I say spiritual slaves, your actual spirit, which is the one that actually creates the external identity. The I is the actual spirit, the energy, the intelligence, that makes the body move, that which makes the body alive. Yeah, that actual piece of spirit, which is you. We used to own that. And now we no longer own that. Our traditions enhanced that. Our traditions broke those things down. Yeah, we didn't speak someone else's language, as you quite aptly put it. Because when you speak language, imagine all language is to do is to describe the images that you see in your mind. Yeah, if I give you a word, the first thing you're going to do is try and create the image. You're trying to make sense, a visual image of what I've just said. So imagine if your language doesn't have the certain words for the capacity of who you are. You can see much further, but your language doesn't allow you to describe where you've been and what you can do. So you have situations where our own language described our capacity and took us much deeper spiritually into ourselves. But now we're speaking a limited language, which is based on a limited understanding.
So let me just jump in. So the language is linked to our spiritual identity, you're saying?
Well, you see, when a child is born, they can see things around them. And as soon as they start to learn English, they lose the ability because the English doesn't allow them to describe what they're seeing inside their mind. When they're speaking their original language, they have the capacity to describe all that they experience.
No, understand
but this is what I'm saying. But when they, because you have to understand, it's something I do in the class and what I've realized. I said it makes no sense that we all speak the same tongue when all of us are uniquely different. Your toes are different, your hands are different, your fingerprints are different. Why would you all speak the same language? It makes no logical sense unless someone comes and gives you a blank way of all of you communicating. I appreciate when someone will say, how would we communicate otherwise? But you found all these villages in Africa and places which found common terms for how they communicated and described certain things, but they also understood that their energy was a separate language in itself. And if you don't have the power and control of that energy, everyone is going to use your language or your ignorance of yourself to use your power to build up their reality. So now we're all speaking in English. So as soon as you go to think about something, the first thing you're going to do is try and look in your memory for the appropriate English word. Yeah? And if you don't have it, you can almost feel small. Say, boy, I don't really know how to talk to you on that level. It's not that you're not talking at the level of your spirit. You're speaking at the level of English. Which that's got nothing to do with your intelligence and your power. That's why you'll see people around the world that are not great at English. You underestimate them. But you underestimate them at their peril, because they're intelligent in themselves. They're just not intelligent in how they communicate English to you. So we're stuck in the situation that your language that you speak buries you. If you don't understand that that is just a way of communication, not the way you communicate with yourself. Your body speaks a separate language, doesn't speak English. That's why when you make a request to your body, you have to wait a second before your body translates it into your language to make that body move. It has to translate it into your language, your original language of your body, and then your body will move. That's why you ask and have a thought, and you hope your body does it. There's so much, sadly, to this science of language which has been lost, and we're thinking we need to be more, learn more English words, learn this, learn that. Well, what you need to do is learn your own language, that which is taking place inside your body. And then your real life force, your real energy is what you're actually communicating, not in someone else's translated language, which always puts them, kings and queens. We used to have our Obas, our Onis, all these different things, which have no power over here.
Okay, let me just bring Brother Lyndon into the mix here. Lyndon, if you can bring your reason.
Listen. Everything is being sort of reconfirmed in our own ways. We're saying exactly the same thing. I love the bit about the language, Brother Edison, because I just saw this dictionary on the desk. And I thought, you know what? Let me use it. Remember last week we talked about the toxicity of English. Yeah. Yes, and Shem jumped on it and so forth and so on. Here's a list. Here's an English dictionary. Blacklist. What does it mean? A list of persons or corporation with whom no dealings are to be had. Can you imagine that? Yeah? Can you imagine that? Let's have a look at some other words. Blackleg. What is a blackleg? It says, one who wins money at cards or betting by dishonest practices. Blackmail. Originally rent payable in cattle, labor or produce. And then it says, as distinguished from the rent payable in silver, right? But then at another point it says a person commits blackmail if with a view to gain for himself or another, or the intent to raise loss, to cause loss, to another. He makes an unwarranted demand with menaces. Black, everything black in the dictionary, under B, blackguard, all of this stuff is a derogatory terminology. This is the language they ask us to learn and to present ourselves as being part of. When they say we're not being British or American, they're actually saying that we are rebelling against what they're trying to do to us. Let me say another thing. Some people might find it strange, but when you think about it at a deeper level, you will see. Schools, we see it as an educational place. Yes? Schools are part of the enslavement system of the mentality. And this is what Brother Edson was talking about.
I call it the initiation into the illusion.
There you are, initiation into the illusion. We called it a delusion in this place last week, and we'll say it again, and it's exactly what you were saying. And let me say this about schools. You see, the failure identity thing is very crucial. Glasses says any child before reaching the age of 5 has success identity. What age do they go to nursery school? 5. And it says between 5 and 10 is when they work on them in junior school to knock their confidence and to bring them down, and break them down. This is like an assault on somebody you captured and trying to get, information.
It's the same thing.
It's a torture. It's mental torture.
You see, the hardest thing for me to ignore right now is that people are missing that the next generation, people no longer want to take out the black man. All right? Because there was a saying, there's no plan for that. There was no future plan for the black boy. There's no idea. They didn't have no plans. This is some new scenario that the system didn't really have any plans for. What do we say? There's no plan for the young black man. So right now, what they're doing, they've gone to war against the youth.
Yes.
So therefore, that they know that this youth is going to be the generations to come. So they've already won the war. The black guy's too busy wanting to earn more, have more, be more in their society, when you can't be a hero in another man's story. So they now are at war with our children, and we're too busy working, trying to find ways to overcome, trying to ask them to stop when this is the plan all along.
Yeah, I just want to interject with this and have your brief comments before the break.
White and black are legal statuses. They were designed for social engineering, connotative linguistics to take the people out of their proper person status. White and black are legal statuses. They were designed for social engineering, connotative linguistics to take the people out of their proper person status.
Lyndon.
Yes, listen, I'm tripping over myself here to just bring this out a little bit of information. And remember that our parents too, right, were also conned.
Yeah.
Yes, and were tortured. Because if you can remember, we are of the age where we can look back and says, we love our parents and all what they did for us, blah, blah. But weren't they the ones who, if you came home and says, I had a hard day at school today because the teacher did this and the teacher did that, they will say the teacher is right. Yeah. They haven't investigated anything, but I'm wrong immediately. Do you understand? So it's been coming for a long time, and this is what I call the mentality status of enslavement, of the mentality status of the black race. Do you understand? Yeah. And so it is true that somehow we've actually inundated, our mentalities as youngsters. People like myself are rebels, so they never did get through to me. You understand? I could spot it from a mile. But not everybody can spot it. And the youngsters today, they're being pulled in by games, yes, which are ruining their mentality and losing their identity. They're just killers now. Do you understand? And by the so-called music, yes, it is killing them. All this violent rap business is part of what has been, who gets paid to do it? They get paid to go and live in a white neighborhood. They're the only blacks living there, and they have about 1,000, bullet catchers they call bodyguards. And I heard somebody say the other day, why don't Nelly and I call him 50 Dirty Penny and the rest, you understand? Why don't they live that life? They're preaching it. They've been used. They sell their souls. And this is part of what is happening. They have no idea of their identity, and they don't want to know it. The only identity they want is something outside of themselves, not inside themselves. And this is the ruination of our youngsters today, because they're listening to this violent rap. They're listening and watching the films. I mean, who came up with the idea of a film entitled Die Hard? What kind of rubbish is that? Do you understand? So the films, the games that they're playing, you know, what do they call it? I forgot the name of it now, but it's just pure violence. Yes? I remember when Tekken was in, and I used to hear it said, finish him off now. What else do you think the children are doing out there? They're finishing them off now. And what they've actually done is forced into their brains to live in fear of each other. And so that's what we are doing, what the youngsters are doing, killing of each other. And it's all because of fear. It's because of nothing else, because the fear has been inculcated into their mentality. And that's what it is.
Well, Lyndon, I can see he's starting to heat up after the So we're gonna calm it down for a second while we can cool this man down.
Should I go in?
He self-combust on us in the studio. So we'll be back after the break. Thank you.
Yes, my brother. Just trying to sort the volume here. But I understand you're from Birmingham.
That's right, West Midlands in the building.
West Midlands. Okay, then. Is it warm down there? I had a rumor say it's a lot more warmer than London.
Listen, it ain't warm anywhere here in the UK.
Okay then, we're just trying to get some more volume so everybody can hear you, because we want to make sure everybody can hear what you have to say. But I know it is warmer in Birmingham than London, so that's good, you know. But
do you know what that is? It's because of the collective of melanin up here. That's why we call it the Black Country.
Oh, right. Okay then. Right then. You know, so let people know exactly your contribution and what is it you want to say. Yep.
So first and foremost, like I said, peace and more powers. Thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate that. My name is Axel. I'm 27. I'm an emerging author, historian. I was invited to kind of come onto the show to talk about a book which I've literally just published, which is called 100 Amazing Facts About the Negro. So I feel like it's quite synchronistic that you guys are talking about identity, and I've been having a lot of conversations about identity at the moment because people screw their face up at me when I say, the book's called 100 Amazing Facts About the Negro, because, you know, to a lot of people the term is quite dated, it's quite primitive. So I thought that's quite synchronistic.
So what is it about the book? You know, I mean, the question is right. I know you're trying to sell your book, but what is it about the book we need to buy the book? Vince me to buy your book.
Well, ultimately, I feel like, to be honest with you, the book sells itself. If you know me and you've seen it, the book is something which sells itself. So I didn't come here to actually kind of sell the book. It was literally to kind of put my 2 pence in on the whole conversation about identity. So
so what is it going to say about identity then? What do you want to say about identity? Sorry to be rude like that. What do you want to say about identity?
No. So with that then, you know, we're told, or we are happy to utilize this term black, which is very indicative of our culture and the things that we deal with. But there is no black land. You know, there is nowhere that we can ascribe to, you know, black to on a map. So what is it that we call ourselves as a collective? And ultimately, the most ancient and the oldest word that we can come with would be Negro. A lot of people feel like Negro is a Latin word or a European word, but that's a big misconception. The truth is, and the reality of the situation is, Negro comes from Niger. Niger is a river in Africa. When these non-African people came into the area, they assimilated that word into their language. From that, you know, the Spanish and Portuguese utilized Negro, and then the word Negro gets used as an umbrella term to dehumanize, you know, black African people through the process of the transatlantic slave trade. So the point is that words are very, very important, and they're being utilized against us because we don't actually know the truth and the origins of where a lot of these words are coming from.
Right, Axel? Hello, Axel, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I want to stop you right there where you just said, because I want to bring the guests in that, but I want to know a bit more about your book. So what is your book called?
So the book is called 100 Amazing Facts About the Negro with Complete Proof, and it's a tribute to J.A. Rogers, who actually come with the concept originally 83 years ago.
And for people who do not know who J.A. Rogers is, who is J.A. Rogers?
J.A. Rogers is a Jamaican-born historian and journalist. He was considered to be the mouthpiece of the Black African community during the Second World War. He was the only Black African-American journalist on the ground. He was invited by Haile Selassie himself to the inauguration and to cover the Italian invasion. And he was a very learned man, and he realized, the origins of the word Negro, and he set out to educate Black African America who were, culturally disempowered.
But my brother, I just want to jump in here because as a youth, I was going through the whole thing consciousness. One of the things we had to look at people like J.A. Rogers, and I was quite amazed that he's from Jamaica.
Yes.
Right? But the thing is that not many I could be wrong saying this though. Not many Jamaicans know about this particular brother here. Am I right in saying that?
You are right, and you know what? One thing which is really, really, and I think it's kind of indicative of our generation here now today, we forget our ancestors and forget the people that do a lot of good works for us, and they become overshadowed. J.A. Rogers was never acknowledged by the international community or by academics or by scholars for no real reason. He triggered and he sparked what was called, or he was part of what was called the Harlem Renaissance. He was part of a group of scholars who influenced the likes of Dr. Ben. He influenced the likes of, your Carruthers, who else was he working with? Carter G. Woodson. So he was a very, very influential person in that movement.
What was the Harlem Renaissance? What is that for people who don't know?
So the Harlem Renaissance ultimately was a coming together of black scholars basically hitting the street and just kicking out information. So these are the people who are responsible for influencing like the nation of like the 5%ers, the Black Panther movement. They're influential to inspiring people like the Nation of Islam. All of these groups here will have been privy to and had access to the information that people like J.A. Rogers was kicking on the streets of Harlem.
So, for what you've been saying, history is key to knowing your identity then?
Just like John Henrik Clarke says, history isn't everything, but it is definitely vital. If we don't know the pedigree to which we've come from, how can we correctly lay the bricks in the path ahead of us?
So what inspired a 20-year-old to write such a book? Because most of the youth, they were on the latest garbs and rap 27, So what inspired you to take this path?
Well, firstly, I've been on it for quite a while. Like I said, I'm 27 now. I've been on it for like 7 years or so. I read the original 100 Amazing.
Yeah, but sorry, what made you identify with this though? This path.
So I read the book, and I realized that these facts and this information that I was learning, my brothers and sisters in my circle and the extended circle didn't know.
Right.
So I was like, bro, you don't know this information from 80 years ago. What about today's information? And they didn't know that either.
So that's great. But and your book now, you're highlighting facts as well, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So the 2017 edition ultimately looks at the various different pillars throughout, the world that we live in: education, rulership, literacy, science, inventions, all of these different things, sport, and it just highlights, various different facts that we can utilize as empowerment. Because
sorry, how many years is it taking to put this together then?
Oh, I'll be honest, not long at all.
Really?
We live in the information age. I've got the internet,
Right,
this is the advantage that we have over the other generation.
And so where can we get hold of this book now? If anybody's listening wants to get hold of the book, how's the best way to get hold of this book?
The best way to get the book, it's £10. It's available from www.ancestorswork.com.
Can you say that a bit slower? For the older heads who's got hearing aids.
Oh, my apologies, family. It's www.ancestorswork.com.
Right. And that's where it's available. Is that via internet, is it, or website?
Yeah, that's it. So if you go onto the internet and you can search for ancestorswork.com, okay, you could go onto Amazon and search for it, and you would be able to find it. Whatever you find is easiest for you.
And I understand that you do museum trips as well to museums, is it?
Yeah, that's right. For the last year, I've been taking people down to the British Museum to explore the origins of what I would consider to be black excellence, going through the Kemetic runes, going through the West African wing, and basically connecting people to, the legacy that we created and which we're part of.
So how can, if I want to go on a tour, how can we get hold of you to go on one of these tours then?
The website, which is wincestorswork.com, has all of the information in regards to the tours, when they're coming off. Sadly, there's not going to be another tour now until maybe around the end of February, because I'm taking a group to South Africa. We're going to Cape Town in January.
So you're doing that as well?
Yeah. We're going to go to Elmina Castle. We're going to go see, where Mandela was kept up. Just connect people back to the motherland, because this is an important thing for us to do.
Sorry to cut you again. What has been the effect of you taking people and showing them their history and taking them to countries of origin? What's been the effect to the people that you've brought around?
It's actually hard to put into words, but I've literally, and I don't want to say I have been able to change people's lives, because at the end of the day, it was them that made it happen by coming. But by being able to connect them to certain things, their lives have changed. From a self-esteem, from an internal perspective, and their outlook upon life and how they approach life has completely changed.
And that's excellent. Well, are you inviting me to come on your next exhibition, yeah? Wednesday?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's
so I'll
right.
be definitely down there, and I'll be reporting back to the team. Yeah. And
we have a private tour that's on the 27th, so you can, like I said, come down. It'll be a fun day.
And then you have to let us know when you're in London next time around, so we can invite you to the studio as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So once again, can you give us the title of your book?
The book is called 100 Amazing Facts About the Negro with Complete Proof, a tribute to J.A. Rogers, celebrating black excellence.
Right.
It's a bit of a mouthful.
Yeah, and your name again as the author is?
My name is Axel Johnson.
Right, Axel. Yeah, well, I'm going to pass that. You made some interesting points. So after the break, we're going to get our esteemed guest to comment on what you've mentioned, and also you're welcome to also phone back in the show and comment. But thanks for taking your time out, and keep up the great work. What is helping people to identify with themselves. So thank you for that.
Nah, thank you for offering me the platform. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Peace and more powers.
Boom. Well, that's another angle where, as Linda was quite rightly reading from the Osborne Concise Law Dictionary, that white and black in legalese, is a term. It's a status that takes you out of your proper person. It's not an identity, because it doesn't. This is not legalese, of course. It doesn't relate to a land base. And as Brother Lyndon quite rightly said, once you put yourself on the blacklist in legalese, you're denied all your opportunities in trading and in property, and you're put at the back of the queue. Edison, over to you.
To quickly go back to the black and white thing, and that being a legal status and everything like that, remember the concept of, go back, you'll find that the concept of black didn't exist before the 15th century. All right, what happened was not in definition of a person. Remember, when a person was called a slave, the next term they used for them was black.
Yeah, it sounds like a phone call, actually. I'm getting confused. You're always on the phone, yeah. But basically, just to conclude what you say, the word black, it comes from the burning of ashes. This is what happened, where basically when you burn, the end product of ash was either white, blank, or black. So the blanc, the original root word was just, it could either mean blank or black.
Well, I just want to jump in it just to clarify. Sorry, Edison. You said that the word black wasn't used in, what year was that?
Well, no, it wasn't until the 15th century.
15th century,
What happened was, in America, there was, I think, the thing called servitude, where there used to be these black crow laws or what have you, where essentially there were people that would put themselves in debt and they would work for the rich gentry over there, black and white people. But what they found was that these people, the poor or the people disenfranchised, would come together and would then realize with greater numbers they could overthrow the rich and gentry on top of them. So what the rich and gentry did, they thought, okay, what we're going to do here, we need to separate these people. So what they did, the people that were poor and white, they gave them land. and now passed over. They're same people that they were married to, because they even had laws prohibiting blacks and white marrying together because they didn't want them to join together and attack. So racism, all that kind of thing didn't exist until they started to create that black and white distinction in order to keep the people separate and to raise one group and lower another group.
And, and it's taking it, and they're also stealing our identity, as I said earlier, because they're not Slavics, they're Africans. So they're even telling them that they're somebody else from who they are. Even by that, using that word, they're even stealing their identity by calling them Slavs when they're actually Africans. And of course, and that's the source of our wealth, because the only way you could earn wealth was by being a trader and having a ship. That's where the word ownership comes from.
Well, you know, I want to go back to the failure identity, because that's a very crucial thing, and we've made our way. Religion obviously was part of it, you know, so it integrates exactly what we're saying. And for Brother Dougie asking for a clearer picture was just ideal, because I think the Massive would like that clearer picture, and well done again, Ed, you know. So let me just come back directly to failure identity. Apparently, it can be perpetuated, and so therefore, the perpetuating a failure identity. Glasser says this. Glasser stresses that the identity society has numerous casualties who, unable to gain a successful identity, suffer the pain of a failure identity. How clear is that? Do you understand? So to break it down, that we are also might be teaching them failure identities from within.
But Linda, I want to just jump in there.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm jumping there,
yes, my brother.
that in terms of solution or way forward, and I want to ask to Edison earlier on as well, do you think we should be now thinking about having our own schools?
Well, you know the old saying, kill it before it grows.
No, I don't know that saying.
Okay.
I know that saying.
Well, the thing is, you always remember another saying is, for others to succeed, for some to succeed, others must fail. What we're missing in the education system, for the black children to be put down, who is being raised up? And we're missing the fact that in their society, their kids are walking out with a confidence, with an understanding. They've stolen our history and given it a different facial structure or an identity. So therefore, those kids are waking up believing we did the pyramids. They know they didn't do the pyramids, but when they watch the movies, they did do the pyramids. All the great inventions that have taken place, they've done it, not knowing that we were behind that. So the actual child, if he was told of all, if it was a fair playing field, the children would excel and everyone would do that. It's a sad thing for society, because all those brilliant young black minds have been turned into things that they can't actually manifest anything from. So we are now in a situation where the schools, they say if you put your child in the hand of the enemy, your enemy will be in your home. They're going to bring that. These kids are trying, because they love their parents, literally trying to create something else. Because if they did what they were told to do and came out as weak as they've been designed to be, it's going to be disastrous for us.
I'd just like to say, just to put what both of you said, is well the psychosis of the teachers as well. Some of them do not have children, you know, and the mental state and their behaviour. Some of them are abuses. If you look at the word therapist, it speaks for itself. The rapist is in the word therapist. So, you know, we don't know what kind of hands we're putting our children into, because really the teacher should have a psychological test. So, Linda, what position? Where does this leave us now?
Well, where it leaves us is the, you know, having to examine and explore the behaviors of the young folks out there and seeing whether or not we can find a resolve. Number one is that parents and teachers, all the people in charge of our children out there, carers and children, youth workers and the rest, you must ask the individual what his or her need is. You can't go out there and just assume that that person's need is whatever it is. You have to ask each individual. That's what uniqueness is all about. And you know, again, they've sown this idea about equality. And that is part of the problem. Because so many of our melanated people want to be equal. But equal to whom?
Exactly.
To the person who is enslaving our mentality.
Exactly.
So how can we ever get out of this labyrinth, out of this maze? There's only one way. First of all, we have to be permanently active in accepting. You see the difference between acceptance and denial. We have to accept where we are at now. And then from there, see if we can help each other to understand or understand better where we are. And everyone solve their own problem, you know. All it needs is expertise to support them. Yeah? I am talking about going into schools as a group, getting across to the young folks through their own language, through their own dimensions of vibrations, which they call music. We have to use the same strategy that failed them to bring them forward. It's a really simple process. I just want to quote Glasser here, please. Let me just quote Glasser. He says, we have already seen that failure identities may be both caused and perpetuated by inadequate involvement on the part of parents and the school system. So both sides are supposed to be doing something. However, many individuals try to reduce and thus sustain their pain by engaging in behaviors which only further separate them from genuine involvement with others. And before I go on to the other bit, yes, this pain they're talking about in psychology is the pain that people would prefer to have. They identify with it, they now own it. You remember I talked about ownership earlier on? Once they own that pain, they never want to change it. Edson is a coach as well. He'll tell you, change is as easy as snapping my finger. But many people will not want to change because they live in fear of what pleasure might bring them. Am I correct?
No, it's 100%. You see, look, every pain you've ever felt is based on what you've created within yourself. The problem that you have is, if I just mention something to you which you would deem ugly or an idea, I give you a visual, you then generate the corresponding pain to match the visual idea that I've given in your mind. So therefore, when someone, like I said at the beginning, owns the image rights of who you are, they can constantly, by just saying a couple of words, put you in a state of pain. What a child is suffering from is trying to get over being called the word black. And he spends his whole life trying to beat that situation. Where now, because of how they've put the word black, slavery, all that kind of dynamic, he's trying to make out that somehow he's better than all of that. When all of that is a lie created on him, a false identity put on him, which is essentially designed to shut him down. So he's now in a situation where the parent, look, the hardest thing, I always laugh, go to somewhere in the deepest Africa where they've never seen European or anything like that, and then try to convince a person that they're black. They'll look at you and say, what do you mean? You say, but you're black. They say, no, I'm from this place. They say, no, you're black. It says, a society says you're black. It says, who is this society you speak of? And are they stupid? Do I look black? This is where someone has gone out of their way through the media, through all these different things, and ingrained an idea so that when you look at yourself through the identity that they've given you. And if they've given you a negative identity, I always say the first frontier of war is inside your own head. Yeah. And if I'm beating you inside your own head because I've given you all the ideas that hold you inside your head, you're literally going to be arguing with yourself based on an argument that gave you. The war that you're suffering within yourself. You have to first learn to define yourself outside of this reality. You've got to define and say, look, I am a spirit. When I say I take it back to the spirit, because my spirit has no color. When we speak about our ancestors, we speak of those conversations you have within yourself. There are ways of taking this information within yourself much further than these people have allowed you to do it. Your identity is your belief system and your individual religion by which you gauge your life from. And like religion, it's not yours. If it's someone else that's put that idea into you, you're acting in someone else's dream world, and you've actually lost before you began.
White and black are legal statuses. They were designed for social engineering, connotative linguistics, to take the people out of their proper person status.
And that's, to concur what you're saying is, I've got a book here by Nation here, and this is happening constantly now. Really, they're creating black Anglo-Saxons with our children.
That's a good one.
Because when you see you're buying expensive clothes, who is it that you're trying to get approval from?
Exactly.
You know, which society you're trying to really impress? Mm-hmm. You know, when our youngsters and when the rappers, the gold, the Gucci's, the Ferrari, what society claims this is a peerage, this is the highest of its society? And that's what we have to look into, because we are trying to imitate the oppressors in our dress sense, our code and our behaviour, because they're the people who we're really trying to impress. Lyndon.
Well, think about the words, the American dream. What connotation is that?
Well, it says one, it's a dream.
It's
so you don't have to struggle for it. It's a dream.
Right.
And you know what happens with every dream? You wake up.
Of course you have to wake up. For it. But unfortunately, there's loads of people, my brothers, that are out there sleepwalking. Yes?
Yeah,
because they're wanting to equate to the American dream or the British dream or whatever dreams they've been told is higher than them, higher than the I within the self. And so what they're living all of this from the outside and putting it inside. And that's where the problem is. We have to teach them how to reverse the process and to develop from inside, to bloom from inside, and then bring it outside.
Before you continue, I just got to say we've got some messages from Bachelor. Bachelor. He's congratulating us on the show. Also, Ringo, we've just got a caller coming through. Hello, caller. Hello.
Hello. Hi, who's there?
Hello.
Is that? Hello.
Hi.
Yes, I've been listening to the show and just really ringing to say very interesting topic, and I'm enjoying the conversation.
Have you got any input to say on identity yourself?
Have I got what, sorry?
A viewpoint on identity from what's been discussed?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask you all a question really about because obviously the true identity is spirit, as I've heard you all saying in there, and I just wondered if you could just go through each of you, what would you say is the first thing or one of the things people can do to get rid of all the roles? Because I think underneath our true identity is all these roles, and like, as you say, the education and religion that has been poured into our minds. So what would you say would be the first thing to do to start with releasing yourself from all these identity crises and going back to your true identity?
Well, I'm gonna because he's charging us by the minute and he's just flying in by helicopter, I'm gonna let our esteemed guest Lyndon come with the first response. Lyndon.
A very great question.
You're not going to charge us for the answer, are you?
No. I'm going to give it as of myself. Listen, do you want to give a name, a non-deplume or something? Because I want to address you directly.
Yeah, my name is Imani.
Imani, thank you so much for your contribution thus far. I would say let's apply, collectively to those whom have kidnapped our mentality and who are abusing our psyche. I want autonomy for the people who need. That's their best resolve. We have autonomy. We'll be able to ask those who are holding us captive to release us by having our stories, as we would call it, history. I say history, her story, their story. It doesn't matter to us because it is a mythology, really, of what's happened to us.
Yeah, they turned our story into a mystery to us, and that's what we're trying to claim back. Yeah.
Yes. So for us to really formulate our own identity, we must have a common sort of view, common viewpoint, common philosophy, if you like. But we're not allowed to do this, Imani. We're not allowed to do this at all. We don't have autonomy as to, first of all, disciplining our children. We don't have that. Because if we do, some law, bylaw or something, would come in and stop us from, disciplining our children. When they need discipline, every child loves to be who they are. But they've got to be given guidance as to how far one side or how far the other side they can go safely. Yes, even crossing the street. It is our responsibility to teach them what we call the Green Cross Code. It isn't somebody else's responsibility. And so from that basic point of view, we give us autonomy. Let us do our work the way we know from our cultural and traditional aspect.
Excellent.
Right. Well.
Edison.
Who else wants to jump in?
Okay. All right. Hi, Imani.
Hi, brother Edison.
Okay, I'm going to start from where Lyndon started off, because he said something which I exactly agree. It has to start now. You can't perpetuate the lie and look for a positive outcome. You've got to say, okay, enough is enough. I need to stop now and I need to go back. And what is wrong, it can't turn itself right. You have to literally go forward and make it right and look at the situation and see where you're failing, where things are not going through. If people say it's not easy, well, nothing good ever came easy. You literally have to fight the good fight, and that starts off with yourself.
Yeah.
If I say that, as far as doing it as a community basis, that's a very hard thing, because a community is based on individuals willing to actually hold the community together. So each person by themselves has to stand up for themselves and stand up with them and actually start to believe in themselves. Now for me, I do my whole ancestral thing, and I'm always advocating that people start to listen to themselves, because within themselves, before, even when I'm speaking now, they're hearing what I'm saying and they're having an internal debate within themselves regarding, is that true? Does that make sense? Is there any logic to that? And in that conversation, we propose that they're having a conversation with somebody else. That same person that tells you to get up in the morning, that tells you to get up, you need to do something. People say it's their higher self, but why, one, would you create a dumber self for yourself? And two, why would you be lying in a bed and you be arguing with yourself to get up? It's something else. If you're there saying, I want to sleep a little bit longer, and you yourself is telling yourself to get up, does that make sense? So that doesn't make sense, because otherwise you would get up yourself. You wouldn't need your own self to tell you to get up. So this is where we introduce the concept of an ancestor, or that sort of voice within you that's literally giving you that alternative statement, giving you that warning in the future, giving you that understanding that if you trust in that voice, you start to actually hear things and you say, I know this, I've heard it before in my head, but I didn't apply it. If you go back to that part of yourself first, that requires reading no books. That doesn't require you needing to lean on anyone. That requires you trusting yourself. And if you can't trust yourself and you put your trust in some other idea, you're owned by that idea. And the people that have an agenda with that idea can count on you to jump in whenever they say jump. You need to be in a situation where you directly own yourself and you're no longer at the mercy of anyone else. If we had 5 people like that, we could inspire 50. If we had 50 people like that, we could inspire hundreds. I always say, if that Million Man March, you had 1 million guys that were spiritually connected within themselves, they would never have let it happen, because those guys could have collectively gone in anywhere and demanded anything, and with that volume of number and power, no one would have said no to them. They have to keep us fragmented all the time. They have to keep us arguing with each other all the time. And they have to give us all these alternative lies as our history in order to keep us locked in the prison that they have within us. So essentially, my first advice is always to trust yourself. You have to gain that relationship back with yourself. And as soon as you've got that, you can build on that to move forward deeper in yourself, to gain more information, more understanding, more emotional control. Because our emotions is where they get us. They know that in our feelings is how we basically judge if a thing is good or bad. So if I present an image to you of something that is bad, automatically you're going to shy away from it. If I present the image of Africa being bad, showing the shanty towns or what have you, you're going to shy away from that. So the poor children don't see the big cities like Abuja, all these different places around the world that look just like here. They're not getting to see those images to see that their own people are as developed as anywhere else. So as a result, when they're seeing Africa and seeing the fly around the child's mouth or the kid without no shoes, they see pain in that image and they don't want to identify with that image. So this is a very carefully constructed plan to keep the child's mind locked away from themselves and embarrassed to go within themselves to look for answers of themselves. So we're constantly going to the bigger cities to look for things that are pretty, and then now have to give ourselves in order for that life to
I wonder
go
if I
through.
can just ask Sister a question. Can you hear me?
I was just going to respond to the question that she asked us first.
Okay.
Yeah, she just asked us a question, so I'm just going to respond.
Okay, yeah.
Basically, it's very simple, individually. All you got to do is go back to what you done in the first place. Learn to stand on your own 2 feet. That's what we done when we had no help. We could stand on our own 2 feet. And then when you look at the history of everything, we come from a position of greatness. And when you look at everything that's happened with identity, everybody imposing themselves, basically you're being taught how to be weak. That's all it is. You are being trained how to be weak. So all you have to do is go back to how you was before and become strong and stand on your own 2 feet. Thank you.
Yes, agree with that.
Can I ask you a question? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, then I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
Yes, give thanks, my sister. I want to ask you a question in terms of because earlier on we did talk about the whole thing about identity, and also Brother Linda kind of painted the picture in the mind with the change we have in the whole educational system, etc. Right? And Edison was talking about it as well. And as we was reading, one of the things that come to my mind straight away is, and the conversation we've had over the time, right? Do you think we should have our own? I use the word black in terms of what we know we're talking about, our own black schools, or to teach our children. I just want to bring into the mix because these are the kind of changes we're finding now, as Brother Linda was pointing out to us, that what you're finding now that the parents they're going haywire because when you go to their yard, there's no cultural thing on them wild to identify himself as any kind of meaningful substance, to input. These are things that's happening, and this is real talk we're talking. So I want to get your feedback on this, and your thing about education, your thing about should we have our own schools, and etc.
Yeah, definitely. I was when I think Brother Lyndon mentioned about children, the thing that came to mind straight away was on a child's birth certificate, you've got the informant, which is the parent. And, one of the things I think about that is one of the reasons why it's hard for us to really get our children mould our children into the people that they've come here to be. Because I think each child has their own journey and their own gifts, and our job is to help them to bring that through. But as you're saying, outside there's this, and I think Brother Edison alluded to it. The education is there to dumb the children down and to literally hide, their gifts and the reason, and so their gifts become something that is being used against them rather than used to take them where they need to go. So absolutely, I would say we need to definitely have somewhere where we can have the children go into their own expansionness and not be retracted, as is happening in the schools that we have for them. But like I said, we also need to look at why is it that we as parents, we're the informant. We go to these registry offices to register a product which is our child, which goes straight on the stock exchange. And again,
yes.
The children become the product of this country.
Yes,
and,
yes.
They make money.
Yes.
We're products,
Yes.
On my birth certificate, my dad's an informant,
Yes.
saying I've just produced, this product and here you are and you're going to get rich on it. And so we do need to address that and even, we have to find a way to be able to congregate and have our children, conscious of who they really are, and find a way to eliminate what's going on outside, which at the moment is taking over our children's minds. So we've got to get back into the driving seat and be the one that, so we've got to find a way to be as attractive as what is there, because it's very sparkly out there. It's very, there's a lot of sparkling things out there that attract the children. And we've got to find a way to match and succeed that, so that the children are turned inwards as opposed to outwards. So again, I would ask, has anyone got any ideas what we can do? How can we get back the minds of our children, and get them to do the things that they came here to do with their gifts?
Well, I think very quickly, I think that it still comes back that we need to have institutions, to educate our children. I do believe that that's one way forward, and basically program them to be identify themselves. So once they identify, they have a purpose, have a direction, and just program them to be responsible. You know what I mean? As adults, you know what I mean? So I mean, we do need institutions to have that. But anyway, I know Brother Lyndon and Edison want to jump in. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to just say quickly.
Yeah.
I do really agree that we've got to drop this colour thing, because if we look at the people that are able to have their own schools and what have you, they're using religion or a culture. But we, as you were saying there, if we are going to try and get things that we want from our people and our children, we've got to find a different way rather than going around as a colour, which doesn't really give us any power at all.
Right. That's interesting. Okay.
It was funny what you said, Amani, because you said attractive. So we have to find an idea, an image that will pull their attention from what they're in now and put it into what it is that we're trying to create. So therefore, what we have to create is something outside of the system, but is solid enough for them to see themselves in it. Because if you're in a scenario where someone's giving an analogy and you can't recognize yourself in it, it's almost not for you.
That's right.
So we have to find a way, as Lyndon said as well, to speak their language and communicate as they see the world. There's no point giving them some corporate or some fancy idea. Come at them where, unfortunately, their minds have been programmed to, and then literally take them from there and put them in a place where we want them. So we have to come with it on all sides. The problem that we've had about education is always pertaining to actual money and earning a job. If a kid is getting an education, it's not to learn to read or write, it's really to learn so you can find the right vocation that's going to bring you the most money in society. So if we start off our own businesses and our own situations and look at make a child believe that you can actually survive in a black environment or whatever, melanated, whatever.
Sorry, Brother Ed, I can't hear you properly. There's another talking going on over you.
Okay.
Right.
Well, what I was going to say is that essentially we have to create our own business infrastructure where we're employing our own children, and they believe that they can come through our education system and basically have jobs within the system that we've created. And if we do something like that, before you know, we can create a society like everyone else has. I know some people see that as separatist, but there's a Chinatown, there's an Indian kind of community, there's a Jewish community, there's every other community that is proud to be that community. But when
and there's no reason why what we build cannot be used by other communities, but we need to have own. There's no reason why, because then that's how you create even more wealth coming back. Because we need to have wealth coming back to us. So it's not even a problem if other people need what we've created, but we have to have the ownership of that.
That's exactly it. We literally need to create our own groups, our own societies, our own sort of developments where we're literally putting all our resources, not saying necessary together, because as they say, we're not very good at trusting each other, but work with a common understanding that if we provide this for our children, they'll have jobs, they'll have realities that they can move into, and they don't need to follow the path that they're leading now. Because if that's their only idea of what success is, who can you tell, what can we provide, or what idea can we give them that's attractive enough for them to stop doing that and follow us? We can say it's not good for you, but everyone who drinks knows it's not good for them. Everyone who smokes knows it's not good for them, but they need that distraction to basically keep them out of focusing on the things that they can't control within themselves. So we do need to create that reality, and the sooner that we get on that, and I believe it's taking place. I know a lot of people that are trying to set up these schools and try to work with themselves to get these little things going. I know there's people trying to get the businesses going. And so I think that has to be encouraged. And in due course, when people get their mind out of the religions and stuff like that, because I always laugh when people go around saying black people need this and need that, and they haven't got enough money, when the churches could fund everything. One of my jokes one of my favorite jokes is Jesus died to save the world, but the church can actually pay for it now.
Sister Imani, Lyndon here again.
Brother Lyndon.
Yes. Listen to me. One of the major things for me is I've been working with outreach, for many, many years, as long as 50 years. And I want to tell you something what I've come across. Some very basic principles. One, parents and educational establishments must find out from children, what their needs are. Here's one need they need to find out about.
Yes.
What is the preference for learning for each child? Because if you're a visual learner, I could stand in front of you for 1,000 years and preach to you. You're not going to learn anything. Do you understand what I'm saying? The first principle is for the parent to do this and to go to the school and say, look, my child is not learning. My child is bored in class because you're not catering for my child's need. That's a great start. And coming back to Brother Dougie's question about how do we do it, do we build schools, our own schools and things, I would say yes every time. But there's a greater and a much simpler basic way of facing this great problem. Make each of our homes a school. That is where it's really at. Where you have more control. You don't have to depend on anybody else outside. So that's the schools I want to see developed. Because the other way around it works, but it's going to take an awful long time, to really get round. And then they can control and say, oh, you can't have a so-and-so school. You understand? And Ofsted will come in and say, "Oh, you're preaching this and you're preaching that." Well, let's strategize. Let me put it in plain Jamaican terms. Nobody's a fool. Simple, right? Nobody is a fool. My daddy taught me that at 4 years old. He said, "Son, how would you recognize a fool?" And of course, I'm only 4. I hear about the 3 wise men and all this thing. I said, "Ask a wise man." And he laughed. He said, "One day, son, you will learn that the wise man would never know how to be a fool because he's never been one." So there's in principle something that I was taught a long time ago. Now, I spoke to one of my charges that I had when he was from 9 years old, and I utilized a sport to bring them together and teach them responsibility. He and his wife is celebrating because his wife is pregnant with triplets. And who did he found first? Not his father, not his mother, not his grandmother, Lyndon. How about that? Talk about having an influence and an input in that. And when he spent nearly an hour telling me how he's benefited from the way how we worked. And when they were younger, they didn't really fully understand it. But he also remembered me telling them that. You won't probably, understand it now. But as you grow up, you will see what Lyndon is doing. Today, I'm happy to say the happiest day of my life so far is to just hear this eulogy coming through. So, for me, that's the number one thing. Let's make schools of all our homes. Yes? Yeah. Let's be responsible enough to say, okay, so first of all, if you're a creative individual, logic is not where you're at. And I'll give you a big example. Branson was kicked out of school when he was 14 years old.
Yeah, dyslexia.
Once they said he was dyslexic, but most of all, they didn't even know much about dyslexia then. They found him doodling. Every day in class he's doodling. Yes? And they had no idea how to speak to this young man. He opened his own magazine, school magazine, and after a while they abandoned it. Because he was actually, recruiting other students to say how they feel. Look at him now.
Look at him now, indeed.
Look at him now. Really nice. I've met the man. He's a really nice, down-to-earth man. He's a genuine man. And he wants, a lot of good to happen. Yes? Of course. But here's the second bit. Whilst we have fraternities, whilst melanated people put themselves in a situation where they want to belong to a lodge, yes, is worse than religion. That's the biggest religion that you've got.
So all up in. Sister Marnie, sorry, Marnie, I'm just conscious of time. And another couple want the phone as well, so you might just.
I can pop off and I'll continue to listen.
But thanks
for
your
answer my question. Great show.
Yes, thank
and
you.
I'll continue to listen. All right then.
Okay then. Sorry, Brother Lyndon.
No problem.
Yeah, because just because about 8 minutes left, and I know a couple want the phone in and thing. So yes, but the live link number is 079 444-31366. One more time, 079-444-31366. This is music to the ears, this kind of reason here, you know what I mean?
I'd just like to say, we're running short. I don't know, are you continuing the show afterwards, Doug?
Yeah. I went to evaluate the show before,
the show after the show will be continuing, so feel free to call in. I'd just like to endorse what I've got a last call coming through. Hello, caller. Hello.
Yes, greetings.
Yes, sir.
Yes, greetings to the elder Lyndon. Wagwan.
Cool, man. As usual, I'm happy in this moment.
That's good. And everybody else, great show.
What's your name? What's your name, sir?
There's many days I go by, but I think that is irrelevant at the moment.
Okay.
All right, no
what
problem.
Would you like to contribute?
Basically, I would just like to say I've heard, I've been hearing a lot of what everybody is saying, and have we identified the problem yet of the situation that we and our people are in? Have we identified that yet? That's a question to everybody.
Have we identified the problem, you're saying?
Yeah,
I think we're quite open up. I think we have identified the problem.
Well, I think we've see, but this is more than a one-show topic. So, the first show we kind of gave a definition. Here we're kind of looking into, vaguely looking into different aspects of it. So I think we're going to need another show to really get into that element of what the cause is. But I like to we can throw it around. Lyndon, would you like to?
Well, my brother, listen. I am welcoming all comments. Can you tell us what you think it is?
Okay. I don't think it's one problem, to be honest. I think we have many problems. Yeah.
As my brethren Minty would have said, talk the thing.
not trying to scare anyone or to try to make everybody start panic.
Yeah.
But so the fact that we have many problems, what we need to do is what I think, because this is just my opinion. What I think we need to do is identify these problems one by one and deal with them one by one. We can't run in and then, because this is where people lose focus. When you run in, try to deal with everything at once. You start that and that one done, and then you start this one, and it's confusing, and it will confuse the people that actually needs the help. Right. Because they will be. They don't know where to look, where to turn, because this one's saying that and that one is saying that. It's just too much for even say a young person to take in.
Yeah, but I want to just jump in here a second. And first, I'll give thanks for your contribution to phoning and reason with us. So we salute you all the way. But what can my mind straight away know that? Would you say that one individual problem might be different from another individual problem?
Of course.
Yeah. Okay then.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is. No one problem is the same.
All right then.
Because if they were all the same, then it wouldn't be more than one problem. It would just be one.
All right.
You know what I mean? So
we need to identify the most common problem among most of us. Then, really.
Yeah. The most common.
Yeah.
And how to deal with that. Because I think the most common problem is identity.
Okay then.
The identity of who we are as a people, because you've got some people out there who say that I'm not this. Don't call me that. Don't call me black. Don't call me African. But as you look at them, you can tell that this person are lost. Or not saying that they're lost because they're saying don't call me black. I don't personally see the problem is being called black. That is a minor.
Okay.
Basically, if there was any problem to be resolved, that would be last on the list.
All right. But let me jump in there quickly. Let me jump in because Brother Lyndon, this made a point that when you go into most people's homes, I'm talking about parents now, right? They have no cultural, anything to identify themselves as being African. So a lot of situation is with. Well, we have to take responsibility. It's in the home, because if you don't identify yourself as being African or culturally identify yourself, there's a big problem there. A serious problem.
That's why I said identity is the first.
All right.
Because that falls under identity.
All right.
You know what I mean?
All right.
Because you can clearly tell. I mean, believing is one thing. Believing left space for doubt. Basically, I don't work with this believing. You know what I mean?
Yes, but
when you know something, it's right in front of you. It's basically like it is what it is. Because it's right in front of you. You can see a man. You can tell that this man is African. You can tell that he is of what they would call dark hue, melanated. So regardless of if a person wants to say you are black, to me, it's just a term to identify you with, not necessarily the color, but with that people.
The stereotype, my brother, yes?
It's a stereotype, yes. But like I said, it's not the main problem. It's just to say, okay, that person is dark. You can call him dark. It don't matter what that man wants to call you, what that man wants to call you. At the end of the day, once we get to the root of the main issue, which is not color, it's the situation that we're in, you know, and what you call it now, the area of the situation. Well, I said we're in the middle of a deep doo-doo hole.
Right, I've got one of our guests want to respond to you. Edison, you'd like to respond, yeah?
No, it's a quick one. It's only because, you see, the terms that we use, English is really used as a way to set off certain programs and ideas within us. So when someone calls you by a certain name, you have to recover emotionally to balance yourself after that. If a man called the next man stupid, the man will not just sit there and say, okay, you call me stupid, I'm going to carry on. He has to literally take that word, process it within him, go through all the emotional variants of the images that he sees in his mind, then regain his balance from what he heard, and then come back and answer you. So because literally the man gave you a trigger for a program that has been put into your system to make you behave in a certain way. So when someone uses the term black, essentially you then run the program of what it is to be black. Hence, you even saying something to defend it suggests that you don't like the image of what someone said. So the level of what this program has been...
Not to cut you there.
Yeah, go ahead.
But there's a term that goes around, it's called sticks and stones. So break your bones. But word will never hurt you.
I have to be... Can I cut in there?
That is screwed up.
Can I cut in there? If someone...
Yeah, go on. I'm sure somebody got something to say about that.
No, I was going to say, if someone punches you in your face, the pain will go away. But if someone says something about you, that will stay with you forever.
No,
so the
it depends on how you let that person, what you call it, let that word affect you.
I know, I appreciate you saying that, but a lot of people spend their whole lives getting over words that people have said to them, and they've never got over it. They'll look at you and say that, you know what, you call me this, but I didn't mean it. I was just angry. The person says, I don't care. I can't get over it. So names are the most, because you know what?
Very powerful.
You can put a plaster over a physical scar. You can't put anything over a mental scar.
I appreciate that. That's a good way of looking at things.
I'd like to thank you for your contribution, because we're just running short of time, but that's excellent.
Yeah, man. I just wanted to fall in and give my 2 cents.
Respect.
Give thanks and big respect to the eye for your commentary.
And then you don't know. I'm conscious enough.
Yes, conscious. I don't know the vice president. Wait, what I said. I'm glad to say you tune in today. Yes, I just realized. But we love your contribution and keep listening, because we'll be back again.
Yeah,
respect.
This is Run, go tell your friend.
All the time.
Yeah, and I think that's something we'll have to touch next week still, but we're going to have to wrap it up right now, and I know Doug is going to continue this, so keep listening. Respect Conscious every time. We're going to have to get you to perform, but Lyndon.
No, Conscious, we're going to wrap
this up, so basically...
my thing for wrapping this up now is looking at what Glasser said about changing a failure identity. I think that will be ideal. Glasser views therapy as a special kind of teaching or training which attempts to help the client to gain in a relatively short time the realism and responsible behavior which should have been achieved during normal growing up. The goal of reality therapy is a successful identity based on being able to meet the needs of love and worth through realism and responsible behavior. And let me just finish this off, because earlier on we gave you like the diagram of how you got to failure identity. I'm just going to finish off by giving you the diagram of how you get to success identity. And it says facing reality, having responsible behavior, love and worth with involvement, and that all adds up to success identity.
Thank you, Lyndon. Excellent. Once again, Edison.
It's difficult in the sense that we're running two different races. All right, you're running the race to be all that you can be in this external world, but you're also running a race to find balance within yourself in your internal world. You're trying to find things that you have outside of yourself to balance yourself inside yourself. But the problem that you have is, I can't find something I've lost in my house in your house. So what is outside, I can't find anything that's going to balance what I've lost in myself inside. So people have to find their own internal identity. And once they have that, then they have a stepping stone to help them deal with what's going on outside. Otherwise, they'll be chasing other people for problems that they can't solve. Yeah, so in truth, with this whole identity thing, please look to find ways you can understand yourself and work out yourself. You can't, what you have and what you do is not you. It's just a reflection of you. You are the one that puts power into those ideas. You are the one, you are the I, you are the spirit. You are the you. That's your version of Most High. Whatever is you. Okay.
We're both going to have both of you back. Doug, have you got any final words?
No, just to say that it'd be great to start. We have to start to be great.
Hey.
And I'd like to thank everybody who's been sending the text in Bachelor. Thank you to Bachelor. Jang Ringo. And and I've also forgot to mention that I'm going to be on Sky this Saturday from 6:30 till 6:30 till 8. No, 6:30 till 7:30. This evening, Saturday evening, and that's Sky Channel 586 Moments with Maxine. So yeah, so once again, I'll be on Sky this Saturday. You can see me being interviewed on Sky this Saturday on Moments with Maxine, and that's from 6:30 to 7:30, and then it'll also be repeated on Tuesday and Thursday. Moments with Maxine, you can catch me on Sky. Well, I'd like to just say it's been a fabulous experience. We still got on the tip of the iceberg, I believe, on this topic. So I think we're going to be going into what my man quite rightly said, the causes of it, and dig a bit deeper. And as I said, what I was saying earlier is that we've been trained to be weakened, really. So basically, you've got to look at who you really are. When you was young, you was able to stand on your own 2 feet. And now everybody else is coming to put things into your head to try to send you to defeat. But now's the time to go back to overcome that feat, and you can overcome that feat once you remember that you've been trained to be weak. So now it's time to stand on your own 2 feet once again. Thank you.
Hello, mate.
Well, go on.
What day of the week is it?
What you ask me them questions for?
I just wanted to know.
It's Thursday.
Oh.
And you know what I go on Thursday?
No, tell me, mate.
It's the Jam Master Show.
Alright.
On Bless Radio.
Nice one.
Things sweet like Jamaican mango. Put a G and a O, that spells go.
Love it, mate.
Remember to turn on your radio and switch on your stereo.
Alright, I'm doing that now.
Oh. DJ Jammers, I play right now.
Cheers.